of 1996. Last year, she held 141 cooking shows and has a show average of almost $700. Please help me welcome Debbie Reason. Okay, thank you so much, ladies, for being willing to share with us your success tips in host coaching. The first question goes to Debbie. Debbie, we'd like to know, how do you communicate with your host during the host coaching process?
When I schedule a show with a potential host, or when I'm at a show making customer care calls, one or the other, I have one main objective in mind. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. It's my personal responsibility as a Pampered Chef consultant to make sure that each of my hosts attempt to have that very successful show. So guiding them through that process is my job. How many of you have ever sent countless emails to your host and find out days later they say, well, I don't check my email regularly? Anybody? So at full service checkout, I determine the best way to communicate with each of my hosts. Some hosts are email. They do it on a regular basis, and some of my hosts would rather be contacted during the day on the telephone. So in past experiences, continuing to leave messages for a host that has teenagers at home, those messages typically never get delivered. So what about those people who their messages just simply go to spam and they never got them in the first place? So after I started asking my host the method that they would rather be contacted by, I was more successful in communication with them. So I verified their email address, and then I make sure that they have mine. That way I can be added to their address book. And if the telephone is a preferred method, I get the best contact number and the time of day to reach them. Some hosts, because of family obligations at night, would prefer to be contacted during the day, while others have limited access to the phone. So I'm that email person. I love to contact people that way. A lot of people now have smartphones, which now I'm glad I do too, to find that out. So I have access to emailing hosts all throughout the day, when it's my business hours and when I'm out running errands. So this gives me almost constant contact with my customers. But whichever form of contact is best for your host and you, then just remember the most important thing, and that is to communicate.
Good. Oh, thank you, Debbie. Mary, I'd like to ask you the same question. How do you communicate with your host?
When I communicate with my host, I do take into account that technology, there are lots of different avenues that we can use with our host, and that I need to use several different methods. I like to work when I'm at work, so I like to communicate there. I like to book the shows there whenever I can, when possible. And then the way that I communicate with them is that after 24 hours, I send an email that is their confirmation email. That's just going to remind them that we have that date down. Within another 24 hours, I'm going to make a phone call. I want to make the personal connection with that host. I feel that if I can make more of a personal connection and stay connected with them all the way through to their show date, that we are going to have a more successful show. Let's see, I also send them emails. I make phone calls to my host. I just try to find out which way is best for them, whether it be text, email, Facebook, telephone call, and just contact them whichever way is best for them and make sure that I do a continuous contact with them.
Good. Oh, great ideas. Thank you so much, Mary. Becky, let me ask you this. How often do you communicate with your host during the host coaching process?
I speak with my host at least once a week. I do make a weekly phone call, and in addition to that, we communicate through text messaging, Facebook, and emails. I find that speaking with my host once a week really gives me an insight to how their show planning is going. Because I work outside the home, I program phone numbers into my cell phone, so I can contact my host no matter where I am, driving, from place to place or whatever's most convenient. When I call them, I usually say, what's going on in your life? How you doing? Make a personal connection. something that leads to a natural conversation. Usually, we'll talk for a few minutes and then I'll say, so, I'm getting really excited about your show. What are you hearing? And my host will either say, well, she'll name the people who are coming. She'll tell me who's bringing a friend. She'll tell me who can't come but is going to order, or there'll be dead silence. The dead silence tells me that she's not making those contacts, and that gives me the opportunity to make those suggestions to help her get over whatever is keeping her stuck from talking to her friends. I used to be afraid to overwhelm my hosts with communication. I didn't want to be the person who bugged them. But I have found over time that making sure we're keeping that connection open throughout the host coaching process ensures that my host is going to have a successful show, so she's going to be a happy host, and I'm going to be a happy consultant.
Very good. Thank you, Becky. Excellent. Mary, can you tell us how you manage the invitation process?
The way I manage the invitation process with my host is that whenever I start my host coaching, I give her her host packet. In there is my guest list template along with the 5-15-5 formula for a successful show. And I put a note in my host packet that lets my host know that if they return 40 names to me within 72 hours, that they are going to get a small gift from me at their show. That's usually a quick cut paring knife or Twix Eclipse, something that we can get off of the supply order. Once I have given them that, I give them the 72 hours and I call them to check with them and get the guest list. It doesn't have to be addresses complete because some people do prefer to invite through email and so forth, so we can work on that once we determine which way is going to be the best for them to invite. What I do is use the mini catalogs. For every show that I have, even if it's only 10 people on their guest list, I mail out the mini catalog invitations. Those are very professional and they contain an abundance of information. Having the mini catalog in the guest hand creates more interest and curiosity whenever they have that than a postcard would do. So I mail those out for my host. I get the names and addresses of the people that they want to mail those to. That way they can have it in their hand. And I love to hear when guests walk in the door and they say, I already have my order circled in my mini catalog. That lets me know that there is a wish list created and that they can be my next potential host. So they're going to have a great time tonight, and showing them what all we have to offer that's not in the mini catalog is a sure way to know that I can get a booking there. Also, some of my hosts like to send out text messages, and what I do there is do a proper worded text message that I send to them that they can send out to their friends and family. I also put a link on their Facebook page to an event that lets their friends and family go directly into their show, and that way there's no guesswork to shop online or clicking any extra buttons, and that way they can invite there.
Oh, great, and that's going to get even easier. So don't you love all the multiple ways that she invites and has her host invite? That's great. Becky, what tips do you have for getting your host to invite a lot of people?
Well, I go over the host rewards chart in the catalog with my hosts and tell them that if they'll follow my suggestions, they're going to get really close or even exceed all the items on their wish list at a discount or even free. In the process, they're going to get together with their friends, learn a recipe, and then have a free shopping trip at the end. That's like girl heaven. I don't know about y'all, but for me, I tell them that there's a very complex formula for having a successful show, but if they'll sit down, I'll walk them through it very carefully. Are y'all ready? Sit down. Lots of people, lots of orders. Lots of people, lots of orders. It works every time. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's very complex. And then I break it down for them in all seriousness and say, if you can break your show orders down 5 before your show, 10 to 15 at your show, or 5 after, then you're almost always going to ensure that you're going to earn anywhere between $165 to $215 in free products. That's awesome. I do offer an incentive, for my host guests to bring a guest. In addition to that, I offer an attendance special. So I tell them that I'll be sending a phone invite message to their guests. They'll give me their phone numbers and let them know that there's a special for those who show up. So that's another way I encourage them to invite those guests. I also tell them that about a third of the people that they invite will show up. So to really just invite anyone they can tolerate for a couple of hours who eats, seems to work.
Okay, lots of guests, lots of orders, we got it.
Lots of people, lots of orders.
That's great, easy host coaching. All right, and Debbie, our final question. How do you ensure that all guests receive a show reminder?
Well, during my host coaching call, I'm an email person, so I'm the one who's going to send the email to my host to make sure that they're going to want to remind those people to show up. Well, I use the Pampered Perk PhoneVite. Love PhoneVite. And I'm not a computer person, so I know that if I could use it, that you can too. But it's just, I always tell my hosts, it's just like the doctors or dentists. They always call us the day or two before to make sure that we're going to show up at that appointment. And I think that if we all had a secretary or an app to help with it, we would be there. So I do love PhoneVite, and I use that quite a bit. So when your host, how many of you have hosts that send out all 40 invitations and she makes all 40 reminder phone calls? Okay? They make all 40 phone calls, right? Okay, no, they start because of the excitement and they want the people to be there. And after 3 phone calls, they've been on the phone for 45 minutes. They've heard the neighborhood gossip. They've heard about their children. They might have been a marriage counselor some of that time as well. And only that excitement would soon dwindle. So the next 37 people, they're on their own to remember the show and win because those got frustrated by that. So I just think that PhoneVite's really easy to use. I love that service, and it's very inexpensive too. It's super easy. And about PhoneVite, Pampered Chef making us host coach. It's not complicated. It's simply a commitment.
That's right. Not complicated, just a commitment. I love that. All right, would you join me in thanking our panel today for all their ideas? Thank you. And I want to give all of you a brownie pan as you leave the stage. All right. You can leave your microphone right there.